There is a pain that almost no one talks about honestly. It is not always the words people say to us that hurt the most. Sometimes what hurts more is the silent feeling that remains after the moment has passed. Why did they feel so comfortable diminishing me? Why did I stay quiet again? Why did I smile through something that broke something inside me? That inner ache is not small, and it is not imaginary. It is often the first sign that something in the balance of your dignity has been disturbed. The painful truth is that the loss of respect rarely begins with other people. It often begins in the moment we start bargaining with our own boundaries. We stay silent when we should speak. We endure what should not be endured. We call weakness good manners. We confuse gentleness with humiliation, humility with the erasure of self, patience with accepting repeated harm. And little by little, without noticing, we teach people how far they are allowed to go with us. Many people grow up carrying a dangerous misunderstanding. They think being good means always tolerating. They think being polite means always remaining silent. They think noble character means endless self-sacrifice, even when the soul is being crushed. But that is not the full truth. Allah honored you. Allah raised your worth. Allah did not create you so people could grow used to crossing your limits, reducing your value, and treating your presence as something cheap. Mercy does not mean you become available for disrespect. Patience does not mean your dignity should be stepped on. Ask yourself with complete honesty, how many times have you left a situation feeling broken, then whispered to yourself, "It is okay"? How many rights have you surrendered in the name of kindness? How many times did you walk away, replaying the scene in your head, saying, "I should have spoken"? That voice inside you is not weakness. It is not oversensitivity. It is a fitra, a natural alarm from within, telling you that something is not right, that your soul knows when your dignity has been mishandled, even if your tongue tries to deny it. Respect is not noise. It is not aggression. It is not threatening people or becoming harsh. Real respect is a quiet state that begins inside you and reflects itself in your words, your silence, your posture, your choices, and even your absence. When you truly respect yourself, people often feel it before you ever explain it. And the beautiful part is that you do not need to become cold, cruel, or someone you are not. Sometimes a few simple, honest, steady changes are enough to restore your place, even in the eyes of those who once underestimated you. The first change is this: stop thinking that boundaries are a form of rudeness. Boundaries are not violence. They are not arrogance. They are not a performance of strength. Boundaries are clarity. They are an inward decision before they are an outward sentence. The person who has no boundaries will eventually be placed wherever others find convenient, not where dignity belongs. But the person who knows where they stand quietly teaches others where they must stop. A boundary does not always need a speech. Sometimes it is a short sentence, a calm refusal, a firmer tone, a change in access, a step back, a choice not to continue the same pattern. One of the biggest reasons people fail to set boundaries is not kindness. It is fear. Fear of losing approval, fear of being misunderstood, fear of hearing people say, "You have changed," fear of no longer being the easy person everyone depends on. But think deeply about that. Is acceptance that comes at the cost of your dignity really acceptance? Is a relationship healthy if it can only survive while you remain silent, endlessly available, and emotionally negotiable? Any connection that cannot tolerate your limits was never resting on true respect to begin with. At first, setting a boundary may feel like guilt. This is normal, especially if you have spent years being the one who absorbs, explains, softens, forgives, and carries. The moment you begin to say no, your old self may panic. You may hear an inner voice saying, "Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I overreacted." But often that feeling is not proof that you were wrong. It is simply the discomfort of breaking an old pattern. The soul that got used to over-tolerating will feel strange the first time it chooses honor. Do not confuse unfamiliarity with wrongdoing. The second change is quieter, but just as powerful. Stop over-explaining yourself. Many people think speaking more about their intentions, their pain, their effort, and their sacrifices will make others appreciate them more. But often the opposite happens. The more you constantly explain yourself, the more you place yourself in the position of someone seeking permission to exist with dignity. You begin to sound like your value needs evidence, your decisions need approval, and your boundaries need a long defense. Over time, that weakens your presence without you noticing. A person who is inwardly secure does not narrate their worth all the time. They do not announce every sacrifice. They do not beg to be understood by everyone. Their actions speak. Their limits speak. Their consistency speaks. This does not mean becoming emotionally closed or cold. It means becoming more selective. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone who asks about you cares about you. Not everyone who listens is safe. Some people gather details only to use them later, to judge, to dismiss, or to reduce. Every unnecessary explanation gives away pieces of your strength. There is a kind of silence that weakens you, and there is a kind of silence that restores you. Silence out of fear slowly trains people to bypass you, but silence rooted in conviction creates gravity. When you stop justifying every choice, every limit, every absence, and every no, people begin to understand that there is something steady inside you. That steadiness unsettles those who were comfortable with your confusion. They may not like it at first, but they will feel it. And often that is where a new form of respect begins. The third change is one of the most neglected of all. Protect your time. Your time is one of the first messages of self-respect you send to the world. When you are always available, always instantly responsive, always canceling your needs, always adapting your life around everyone else's poor planning, you unintentionally teach people that your life has no sacred structure. You become easy to consume, and people who consume too easily rarely appreciate deeply. Constant availability does not create love. It often creates carelessness. Respecting your time does not mean becoming rigid or unkind. It means being clear. It means understanding when you can and cannot give. It means not accepting endless lateness, vague commitments, repeated interruptions, or emotional demands at any hour simply because you are afraid of disappointing someone. A person who respects their own time moves with calm intention. They do not run themselves empty to keep everyone pleased. They understand that life is not a waiting room where they must always be on standby for other people. And then there is a truth many people avoid because it sounds uncomfortable. You cannot build your identity around pleasing everyone and still expect to be respected. The person who says yes when their heart is screaming no may look generous from the outside, but inside they are slowly disappearing. They agree before thinking. They smile while exhausted. They carry what is not theirs. They apologize for having needs. And over time, they do not earn deep love. They lose themselves. Worse, they often lose the respect of those they worked hardest to satisfy. Stopping people-pleasing does not mean becoming selfish. It means becoming honest. Honest with yourself first, and honest with others second. It means saying, I cannot, instead of inventing excuses. It means expressing discomfort before resentment turns into emotional collapse. It means accepting that some disappointment is the natural price of psychological health. Not every person who becomes upset with your boundaries is being wronged. Some are simply losing an access point they had grown comfortable abusing. One of the hardest lessons in life is this: when you say no, you must mean it. Nothing weakens your presence more than retreating from your own boundary at the first sign of pressure. The moment you say no and then collapse under insistence, guilt, blame, emotional blackmail, or people reminding you of the past, you teach them that your refusal is only temporary theater, that your limits are negotiable, that persistence is stronger than your conviction. And from that point on, your words begin to lose weight. Steadiness is not stubbornness. It is coherence. It is when your words match your inner truth. It is when your decision remains standing even while your voice stays soft. You do not need to become hard in language to become firm in position. In fact, some of the strongest people are the gentlest in tone and the clearest in limit. Over time, something remarkable happens. People stop pushing as much, not because they suddenly changed morally, but because they learned that pressure no longer changes you. There is also a subtle danger that destroys dignity from within. Repeated tolerance of small disrespect, the sarcastic joke, the dismissive tone, the interruption, the eye roll, the habit of minimizing your opinion, the consistent lateness, the casual insult disguised as humor, the repeated crossing of lines followed by, I was only joking. These things seem minor in isolation, but dignity is rarely destroyed by one massive event. It is usually worn down by small, repeated permissions. And every time you ignore them without awareness, a pattern is being formed. Not every offense deserves a dramatic confrontation, but not every offense should pass untouched either. Sometimes a look is enough. Sometimes a calm comment resets the moment. Sometimes changing the way you engage is stronger than any speech. Sometimes distance is wiser than debate. The point is not to make every moment a battle. The point is to stop acting like your pain has no witness and your dignity has no defender. Repeated silence does not always preserve peace. Sometimes it only preserves access for those who benefit from your passivity. Many people assume that self-respect is just a social skill, a posture, a way of speaking confidently, or a trick of body language. But in reality, self-respect is deeper than performance. It is a spiritual position. It is a way of honoring what Allah honored. When you protect your dignity, you are not worshiping yourself. You are guarding a trust. You are refusing to treat lightly what your Lord gave weight to. In that sense, self-respect is not just psychological maturity. It is moral seriousness. It is an act of inward responsibility before Allah. This is why the confusion between sabr and silent self-erasure can be so dangerous. Sabr is noble, but sabr does not mean normalizing repeated humiliation. Humility is beautiful, but humility does not mean allowing yourself to become insignificant in your own eyes. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the most merciful of people, yet he was never a man without boundaries. He was gentle without being weak, patient without being available for degradation, compassionate without surrendering clarity. This balance is what many people have lost, and here is what happens when you finally change. Some people will adjust. They will rise into a better way of dealing with you. Others will become uncomfortable. They may accuse you of becoming difficult, cold, proud, or distant. But often what they are really reacting to is not your cruelty. It is the end of your excessive compliance. They were attached to the version of you that was easiest to access, easiest to interrupt, easiest to guilt, easiest to overlook. The moment you become clear, they feel the loss of that convenience. Some people will leave, and this may hurt more than the disrespect itself. Because part of you will wonder, did I ruin everything by finally choosing myself? But that question hides another, more honest one. If one clear boundary was enough to break the relationship, what exactly was holding it together before? Real love does not collapse under healthy limits. Real respect does not disappear the moment you stop over-functioning. The ones who leave because you became clear were often staying because you were blurred. This is why not every loss is a loss. Sometimes people leaving after you grow is not punishment. It is exposure. It reveals what the relationship was built on. And though that emptiness may feel painful at first, there is a peace that begins to enter your life when you stop maintaining connections with your dignity as the price. The heart learns something powerful in that season. Not everyone who stays is good for you, and not everyone who leaves has harmed you. Sometimes their departure is exactly what creates room for your return to yourself. The deepest shift begins when you stop asking, "How do I make them value me?" and start asking, "Why did I become willing to negotiate what should never have been negotiable?" That question changes everything, because your worth was never created by their approval. Their behavior may have revealed your wound, but it did not define your value. Your value is not floating in people's opinions, their moods, their habits, or their ability to recognize what is in front of them. Your value existed before they respected it, and it will remain even if they never do. But expression matters. Value that is never defended begins to look invisible in the eyes of others. That is why boundaries matter. That is why speech matters. That is why selective silence matters. That is why consistency matters. People learn from your repeated behavior how to engage with you. If you speak where you should stay silent, stay where you should walk away, explain where you should simply decide, and endure where you should gently refuse, you create a map that leads others straight past your dignity. Then one day you wonder why they crossed the line. forgetting that the line was never clearly protected. So let this be the turning point. Not toward anger, not toward hardness, not toward revenge, but toward clarity, toward steadiness, toward a calmer, cleaner relationship with yourself. Say no when no is true. Speak when silence would become self-betrayal. Be silent when explanation would only cheapen your conviction. Withdraw from spaces that repeatedly diminish you. Protect your time. Protect your words. Protect your heart. Not because you are above people, but because you finally understand that your soul is not a cheap thing to leave exposed. And remember this above all: Allah did not create you to spend your life begging the world not to mistreat you. He created you with dignity already written into your existence. Your task is not to invent worth. Your task is to live in a way that stops apologizing for it. Once that happens, something inside you becomes quieter and stronger at the same time. You stop chasing respect and start embodying it. You stop proving your value and start protecting it. You stop fearing who will leave and start thanking Allah for whatever remains after truth has done its work. And that is where real healing begins. Not when everyone finally understands you, but when you finally stop abandoning yourself.